but it has been
Stop watching Fox or CNN or whatever you watch when they great.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another TRD webinar. Before we get started, we have a brief video from our sponsor.
Hi, my name is Morgan Selby, VP of Strategy at LabFinder. Since the start of the coronavirus outbreak, we've been working hard to combat this virus by offering both the diagnostic nasal swab test and the COVID-19 antibody test. Both tests are available to book, and the antibody test that we provide access to has an accuracy of 96%. Simply go to labfinder.com and search COVID-19 to select which test you wish to take. Your results can be ready in 3 to 5 days. From everyone at LabFinder to your family at home with you, stay safe and healthy. We are here for you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, LabFinder. Really appreciate it. Like I said, I am E.B. Solomon from The Real Deal, and I'm here with Khashy from Platinum Properties and Donna Olshan from Olshan Realty, who I think is having technical difficulties, but I hope will be back any minute. We're here to talk about boutique firms and small firms because running a small firm is very different from a big one, and you're dealing with this whole coronavirus and the pandemic and all of the implications in a very different way. So while we wait for Donna to get back, Khashy, why don't you tell us just a little bit about what the last few weeks have looked like for you and for your agents?
From the beginning, it was the first week was a little bit difficult. We weren't used to working remotely, but we started right away. I believe maybe even the end of the first week, having morning meetings with our executive team at 9 a.m. and then mandatory for our staff to join at 9:30, since we thought this would be temporary, but obviously it wasn't temporary, and we've been doing those meetings since. Then we got into, we had apartments obviously for rentals and for sales, and luckily right before the epidemic happened, we hired a company by the name of Pick that is very, very easy to use. So you can literally shoot a 1-bedroom in a matter of minutes, and it goes online right away. So we started shooting all the rentals and sales, knowing that we didn't know exactly when it was going to be time to come back to the office.
Let's come back to that. So your office has been totally closed for a few weeks, or
yes.
What's been happening?
We closed, I believe, on March 15th.
Mm-hmm. And what was that like for you and the agents? At the time, did everyone sort of feel like we have to do this for public health reasons, or because I think that sounds like a few days before the executive order, closing non-essential businesses?
Look, health is first. Obviously, everybody was very scared with what happened, and we were, didn't know exactly what to do, but we knew that none of the agents should be going out, and we closed the office and actually revoked any access by the key cards that we have. So even if somebody wanted to go into the building, they couldn't get into the office.
Wow. Donna, can you hear us?
I'm trying.
Okay, we'll come back to you. We'll come back. So Khashy, I'm curious sort of how you felt and how the agents felt once the executive order came out and, real estate showings were deemed non-essential. I imagine there were some pending deals that you had to deal with, and then agents for whom staying home is hard, just from like a making a living perspective.
It was very difficult. We didn't know what was going to happen, but, fortunately for our company, and this is not a good thing that happened, obviously, it's a very bad epidemic that everyone in the world is going through. I went through September 11th and the dot-com crash, and we also went through the financial crisis in 08 and 09. So right away, I started thinking, let's just say this lasts for a very long time with my partners. And we decided to, start training our team to work remotely as efficient as possible, right? Mm-hmm. Having meetings, having different webinars that would enlighten the people and that would give them some positive energy. I think it's very important the energy comes from top to bottom and creating an opportunity out of it. I think with every negative thing, there's an opportunity. So we started seeing that doing the virtual tours is actually more efficient, right? Instead of you taking out a client, whether it's a rental or sale client, and dealing with hours, in a matter of an hour, you can do 5 showings. Mm-hmm. So we've taken advantage of that. Obviously, we're not doing as many deals, or not nearly as even half of the deals. Mm-hmm. But the important thing is for the agents and for us, is having a fiduciary responsibility to all our employees and all our agents, giving them all the tools they can use to still interact on real estate transactions. Because if for a real estate agent, sometimes you don't make money in a month anyways, right? But as long as you're working on deals and you're meeting people, you keep going. I'm not saying it's easy. it's difficult, but we started from the beginning. And, luckily for us, our agents are transacting on leasing. We have closed sales remotely, and we have signed contracts for sales of virtual tours.
Wow. Okay, I want to get back to virtual tours for a minute, but I think Donna's back. So Donna, what can you tell me about how you and your team has been handling this the past few weeks?
How have I felt about virtual tours?
No, just in general, like what has this pandemic been like for you? Sort of, how have you taken your operation remote, or what have been the steps that you've taken?
Well, we closed our office on March 11th when the pandemic was declared by the WHO. But I've always had my office lean, mean, and set up technologically so that you can work from anywhere. The idea I've always had was that if somebody asked you for a financial or anything on the building, a offering plan, you'd have it in your Google Drive and you'd send it right out of your Google Drive or your Dropbox. So everyone in my office has always been very technologically trained to be able to work from anywhere and do anything. So that's done. They're really, the only thing that stops us is that we can't do still have all rules. Or,
so you're saying
in an office, whether it's
I think she's saying in-person showings are the things you can't do.
We just can't do in-person showings, but we have spent a lot of time with clients to
I think if she calls in.
You know what, Donna, you're breaking up. So maybe you can call in, or let's wait for you to clear up. Let me ask, Khashy, can you talk a little bit? Donna mentioned that her firm, she runs it lean. Small firms by their nature have to be a little bit leaner. Is that right? So I guess pre-pandemic, is that sort of how you were running the operation?
Look, yes, we are obviously smaller firms. Have to run leaner. Yeah. And we actually moved into a brand new office on January 5th. So it's kind of interesting to that point. But we have to, what we did, are you talking about like cutting costs and stuff like that during the epidemic? I just want to understand your question.
Yeah, well, I guess you know, to be really direct about my house. To be direct about it, I mean, if a small firm is already running a lean operation, what kind of financial impact does it have on you?
Look,
what you cut?
Fortunately for us, we're a self-funded company that doesn't rely on, raising rounds or Series A's or B's or C's or being publicly traded. So thank God we're okay. Yes, it has a financial impact. But I like that you asked this question. Everybody thinks that, you always have to make money. Like the companies always make money. No, there's times that you lose, right? And it's okay. Because I feel all this demand, pent up demand, we're going to make it back. And, it is what it is. But financially, yes, it definitely takes a burden on the company, right? Because you're going to be losing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months. Mm-hmm. But we're very confident and optimistic that we're going to make it up. And if we don't, we'll have a year that we had a loss, right? We'll make it up the next year.
Okay, got it. So were there any proactive steps you had to take to sort of be kind of just to mitigate some of the financial burden?
Yes, look, we spoke to many of our vendors, and thank God we've been around for 15 years, so they understood. Certain vendors gave us 50% off services, and certain vendors said, they went down to zero. Mm-hmm. We asked, we didn't tell them. We said, what can you do for us? And it's great that how a lot of the vendors, I'm sure we all share a lot of the vendors in the real estate brokerage world, have been, very good with giving discounts or deferring payments. And even our landlord said, look, once this is done, show us, your financials and we can discuss what we can do for you.
Right. Donna, what about you? You were saying that you already run pretty lean. So I was just asking Khashy, you already run lean as a small firm. What do you do in this situation to minimize the financial impact? What have you had to do?
You know what? We've run very lean, and I haven't done anything like go to the landlord, which is Rudin. Our space is not that big. I've always watched the costs very carefully, and I know what everything costs. So I'm not invested in big brick and mortar. We're just running as it is. Obviously, we don't have to pay any marketing expenses or anything like that. But one thing we're very good at is being resourceful and using the technology and leveraging it as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, just a few more questions about the finances because we're talking about it. Did a lot of the bigger firms were not, frankly, eligible for the PPP loan or other SBA loans. Smaller firms, maybe. Is that something that either of you considered?
Yes. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Ladies first. Ladies first. Go ahead, Donna.
Oh, no. I mean, I did it. It wasn't that hard to do. I didn't get the first round. I got the second round. And it means that it just is easier so that you don't have to lay anybody off or furlough. And I really didn't want to do that anyway. So I did it. I used our Chase Bank, and it wasn't that big or bad a deal. The only problem is in the first round, I just, I didn't go through my private wealth guy. Probably could have gotten it quicker had I done that instead of just going to the commercial Chase guy where I, have Olshan Realty. So I don't know. We did it, and we are, we're full steam ahead.
Got it. What about you, Khashy?
Yes, we applied for it also through Chase, and we didn't get the first round, but we got the second round this week, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. So for both of you, was that something that you needed in order to kind of keep the lights on, so to speak, or how did you view it? You can start first.
Go ahead, Khashy.
No, we were fine with that. Obviously, everybody can use it, but it didn't mean for us that if you didn't get it, we would have to close down the company.
Got it.
Yeah, same. I mean, really, I have always operated very conservatively, have kept capital reserves for this kind of day. I've been doing this for 40 years. I've seen many markets. And I'm basically very conservative. I've never had debt on my company, not even a lease of a computer or a copier. And in the early days, never any debt. I've always stayed away from debt and leverage because you have enough operating leverage running a company. I think in many ways, we as small firms or boutique firms we're very much like an independent contractor. The only working in a large firm, most of the people in the real estate world are independent contractors. They are working with their own profit and loss. They're running their own little business out of the franchise of the large firm. So we have to go the extra step. We rent our own office space. We have our own technology. But there's a lot to be said for running your own business efficiently.
Absolutely. How does this feel, at least right now? I mean, we obviously, the past 6 weeks have been like nothing we've all experienced, but how does this feel right now compared to prior cycles like you just mentioned, Donna?
This is unique in every respect. In the beginning, I would say to people, it's, because they were trying to look for a reference point. And I'd said it was a cross between 9/11 and 2008. It really isn't. It's more devastating. More people have died. There are 30 million people who are now who are not being paid. And it's a much tougher environment. That's not to be said that, we won't come back, but this is the toughest of my 40-year career by a long shot, just looking at what's going on since March.
What about you, Khashy? How does it feel in terms of, you mentioned 9/11 and other?
I think it's a combination of both and a little bit worse. I think this time, instead of the bankers, it's the retailers that are really in trouble. But I got to tell you something. September 11th happened, right? And we thought, this is it. Everyone's going to move out of New York. No one's going to live in a 10-story building anymore. Like they want to be second, third floor. Everybody came back. They started building the biggest, tallest towers. You know, 08 and 09. So what 08 or 09 happened also, big disaster in the financial markets, and also was very bad for real estate. And we thought we're not going to make it out, right? What I learned from those two is that the deeper and the worse of a recession that we have, the stronger that we come back. So it's a very bad thing that's happened, but I'm super excited and optimistic for when we come out of this, for real estate agents specifically. I think that we're going to really, if you're able to use this as an opportunity, and we have to figure out where the opportunity is in the market for ourselves and our agents.
Right.
Yeah, I want to step back and tell one small story about recovery. After 9/11, and there really wasn't much to do. The next day, it was 9/11 was a beautiful sunny day, and the next day was raining. And I picked up Money magazine in my home, and I was reading. There wasn't much to do, and there was a story about what happens to real estate in Israel after there's a terrorist attack. And the story was that they did a study that things would be really bad for 3 months after the terrorist attack, and the market would go down 30%. And then 3 months later, if nothing happened, the market would come right back. And that's really basically what happened at 9/11. In 2008, it took longer. It was more like 9 months because it was a continuing crisis. And I would say the only thing I've learned, and I'm just using these as reference points, but I don't know if anybody can make an assumption. The problem with this is it's a rolling crisis. And you need to get sort of 3 months of not bad news, and then you come up from there. That's the only, when that happens, I don't know. If I knew that, I would be on my yacht. But if I could forecast that, but that seems to be the behavioral thing. Now, this thing is pretty scary because everybody knows people who have died or gotten sick, or children are now sick. And so this is pretty scary. It's a different thing, and making assumptions that it's like 08 and 9/11, I think this is totally different.
So as you're going through this, and you're both business owners, you're responsible for yourself and for your employees, what are the investments that you're making? And Khashy, you mentioned some virtual tools, and Donna, you've mentioned technology, but what are some things that maybe you expanded using, or I don't know, maybe you started using Matterport when you didn't before, or something like that? Where do you invest at a time like this?
I think technology, and we've been investing in technology for the past, 4 to 6 years, and now even more so. We're using a company called Pick for Virtual Tours. The reason I like them, and I tested all of them out, is because you're able to take a virtual tour in a matter of minutes, and it's uploaded.
Okay.
So I think that's a great thing to have, because it's quick, efficiency, fast, right? I don't need to wait a day, 2 days, 3 days to get it. So it's really nice to have that. Also, with our clients, moving has been a big problem. We were able to find a company called Moved that is a moving concierge, and every single move that we had has been successful. So, which is great, right? Because that was a problem in the beginning. Well, we don't have movers, we can't move in. Another thing that
people hearing all this?
Moved, yeah, because moving is essential. So we found a company called Moved, and what they do, they're a concierge, and they find movers that are actually working to make the moves happen.
Okay.
Which is really great, because if you can do a deal where there's a renter or sale, you can't move into it, it's a problem for the tenant. But I think the main thing that our company is going to focus on is the health of our agents. Because we realize right now, and we didn't know this, including myself, working on Zoom and overworking, right, really gets to you. And this is something interesting. And my partners are really excited, because like you learn new things in academics, right? I realized I was always a person who said work. Real estate agents is 24/7. Pick up the phone. Doesn't matter what time it is. Take the phone with you in the shower. It doesn't matter. You have to pick up your phone. Mm-hmm. I realized that actually that's the wrong mentality to have. And it's really important to have a work-life balance. And that's why one of our core values that we're going to implement into our company is actually the health of the agents. And we're working to see what we can do to give them things that will make them healthier, their mind and their bodies.
Interesting. Donna, where did you come from there? You've emphasized technology for years. What's worked really well for you? Maybe just to start, like what tools have worked really well during the past?
Well, I'm always have been an early adapter, and I'm always studying and learning. And then when I learn something new, I tell my agents. So I'm constantly out there looking at stuff, and I love data. People know that, and I use the data and what it tells me to sort of give me an idea of forecasting or insight into the value of the property. So I'm always playing with the database.
Right.
And we got a new one about 18 months ago. Well, I am the first client of Eric Gordon Real Plus, okay? And you have to understand that I started before a fax machine was invented. So I've had to go through the 286, the 386, the 486. I had to learn about all kinds of things. I bought domain names in 1994, like townhouse.com, before, anybody even knew what the internet was. So I've been doing a lot of stuff, and I'm very fascinated by what goes on in the world. So that's how I come at things. And I feel I need to have a lot of information to be able to advise people now. And that's where I want the energy spent, is figuring out what's going to sell, where it's going to sell, how much it's going to sell for, and what's going to work for people. Now, I will tell you this.
Yes.
We are in the MLS in Westchester, and we are sending people out. We are finding New Yorkers going out. I did a deal over the weekend in Bedford. So look, wherever it sends me, it sends me. That's all. I'm out there.
So how have the virtual, just to stick to the city for a minute, where there's no showing, no in-person showings, how have the virtual tours been going for both of you? Have either of you done virtual deals? And what can you tell us about that?
The thing we did in Bedford was we sent it to them, they looked at the pictures, and they just took it. It was right off it was on for a day. They were the first people to bid. There were 7 offers on them, and that was that. So that's what we've done virtually.
Wait, hold on. What kind of property was this?
It was a large property in Bedford, New York. But it was for rent. I think for rent, you can do a lot of virtual things. And the virtual tours have worked for the people who've already saw the properties before COVID.
Right.
And then to refresh them, it worked. In my luxury report, there was only one sale that's been done in the last 7 or 8 weeks that was sold virtually, and that because it was an investor, and that fit what they were looking for. But it's a high touch business, and to get people to spend money on one of the biggest investments of their life without walking through it, that is, that's hard. Have I done them? Now, I can tell you one other example. In about 2015 or 16, I had a client who insisted that I find him a house in Westchester and then in Greenwich. Greenwich is not my gig. So I looked and looked and looked, and it was a very specific kind of house. It had to be contemporary. And then I did find it, but he was over in Asia traveling with his wife. So I needed him to come back right away, and he couldn't get back quick enough, and there was another bidder. And we did do it all, walking the property every square inch with FaceTime. We did it. It's possible, and it was an over $4 million sale. But your heart is in your mouth when you do something like that, because you just hope that that they love it as much as you love it. Fortunately, it worked out, and it's an old client. But you really have to know what you're doing. Now, this is what I think could happen. I think with these empty apartments, right? I think what may be, because it's going to be tough in Manhattan may be that this is what we've talked about in our office. We will leave the keys at the door, but the agent with the broker will have to show up, and they will either FaceTime, Zoom, Google Hangouts, whatever, at that appointment with us, so that we don't have to physically be there, but that we can talk them through it.
Wait, hold on. I want to get more into what things are going to look like in a minute, but I want to ask Khashy, because I think you were mentioning that you've done some virtual deals. So were those rental or sale?
We've done both. We sold.
Price agnostic, the ability to do a rental deal?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
I think it's price agnostic. Do you think any price point is possible?
Possibly, depending on the situation of the tenant. If they have to move, they have to move, right? The sale is a little bit different. You don't have to buy. But we've done, dozens of rental deals so far since the epidemic, virtually.
Right.
But we just don't send them a virtual tour. We actually get, we figured out a system that we get into the virtual tour with them, and we show them around, and we describe the area, the amenities to the building. You still have to have salesmanship, right? You just can't email a tour and say, please, do you like this or not? So if they liked an apartment that was $4,000, because we also deal a lot in the open market, and if they don't like our exclusives, we don't want to lose them, you have to have a couple of things lined up. So if you don't have the virtual tours, we've been showing them pictures. But we've been successful also in sales. I know we did 2 deals. One was for an investor, so that was a bit easier because they're buying as an investment. And one was for someone to live in it. And they were both done off virtual tours. By the way, they're in contract. They're not closed yet. But we also had deals that were in contract before that we closed during COVID. And I think that might even be the future. I don't think we're going to be going to closings that often.
So let's start talking about what things might look like. I guess at this point, are you planning for reopening, which could be in a few weeks, maybe?
We've discussed it. We still don't know all the guidelines of what they're going to ask us to do. But as far as ordering, personalized masks, hand sanitizer, I don't think that we're going to restructure the layout of our office, in my opinion. Real estate agents, it's a different kind of business. We're lucky enough that half can work from home for one day, half can come to the office, and all our executives have private offices. So that works out. Because I feel like, and I could be wrong, once you ever get a vaccine or a cure for this whole social distancing is going to go away. I don't see this as being something that's going to last, for 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes I'm walking around and I see the little squares outside stores, stand here and wait your turn. And I think maybe that is our future. I don't know. Donna, how are you looking at, what comes next for you and for your agents?
Oh, I don't know. We're waiting and seeing how this plays out, and how this, obviously we want to be very efficient and not go and show unless the person, is real, or I think the open house days are going to be over. And also a lot of what we can do is dictated by the buildings. So certain buildings may say, I expect that a lot of buildings, or most of them, will say no more open houses. And then we may get directions from these buildings what they expect from us in terms of showing. So I don't think this is something where we as agents call the shots. The virus calls the shots first, and the buildings we work with will call the shots, and the managing agents, and we'll see. In terms of my office is set up so that there is enough space between people. But it's a different world. I mean, I would expect that many offices are going to have a thermometer that you're going to have to, before you walk in, you'll have to get a thermometer reading, and maybe an oximeter will be on site, which takes your oxygen level. These are things that I would expect. In terms of looking forward in the future, these are times where if I were a developer, I would be looking at other things in terms of changing up what they've done. Am I moving too fast, Evie?
Nope.
What? Okay. So first of all, the absolute must-have, more than the kitchen almost will be the home office. So whether you are a developer or whatever, or an agent, you have to think about on that floor plan where that home office is going to be. If you're in a studio, it's maybe in a closet. If whatever it is, if I was a developer now, I'd be reworking my plans to make sure that that home office is designed somewhere. And the agents have to think about when they're marketing, going back to market, where will the home office be? Because you have to expect that the type of people we have as clients, a lot of them are executives and they will be working from home. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be the must-have. It also changes in the suburban and exurban communities. The big home, the McMansion that was sort of going out of vogue, maybe come back into vogue, because if everybody's working from home, if the wife's working from home, the husband's working from home, the kids have got to do home, they're online, the college kids isn't able to, that's a lot of space. Yeah. So it may be that the big spaces will be in demand, in a different kind of demand.
Well, I was actually listening into the Zillow earnings call yesterday, and the CEO of Zillow was hiding out in his bedroom because he said he needed a home office. So you may be onto something. But
I expect California Closet and those people to do very well. And there are these companies where they have these built-in offices. They fly from the wall, and they're so cool. So these are all these, very interesting things, how it's going to move around. And let me say this. In this next couple of years till we have a vaccine, one has to think about, and it's a sad story for the commercial owner, that a lot of companies are going to go back to their landlord and say, we don't want as much space. We want to scale back our space. And that means the employee is going to have to absorb the space, and their home office is going to be the space. I am sitting here in Bronxville, New York. That's my second home. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's not far from New York City. And I will tell you, this whole neighborhood is filled with people working out of their home right now. Mm-hmm. And right around the corner from me is Roger Goodell, who's the NFL commissioner. He ran the draft out of his basement. Another guy around the other corner is one of the biggest bond guys on Wall Street, selling bonds for a big bank. He told me he's never sold so many bonds in his life. So there are people who are just, they're working very efficiently. Now, that's not to say, when this is over, people won't come rushing back to New York because they can't wait. But for the moment, this is what we got.
So we have a question from someone who's listening, and this person wants to know, when do you think we'll see Manhattan sales bounce back? And the person wants to know, kind of in the 1 to 2 bedroom range. Khashy, why don't you take a stab at it?
I think we'll see this come back. Again, it all depends on this virus, right? Okay. But I also think that we're going to find a cure for this virus much faster than 2 to 3 years. It's the first time in the world that every single pharmaceutical company, scientist, doctor, is trying to find this cure. So I'm overly optimistic, but it's the way I feel. So I think we'll be back to sooner than later. And it depends on the virus, but I think that you're going to see movement in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
I don't know about pricing. Maybe it'll go up, but we do have a lot of inventory. But there's something that I've been trying to find data on. And I think a lot of people, we're very lucky to be in New York out of any city, in my opinion, in the U.S., even though it's devastated the most, the way it's going to bounce back. You have Amazon, you have Facebook, you have Disney, you have Apple, and I believe ESPN building headquarters in New York City right now. I think it's about, don't quote me, it's 7 to 10 million square feet of high-end office space. And these people are not getting paid $50,000, $75,000 a year. They're getting paid $150,000, $250,000, $300,000 a year. These people, most of them are going to either buy or they're going to want luxury rentals. Mm-hmm. And there's a formula for the amount of office space that comes to a city. You need a certain amount of residential to absorb it. Mm-hmm. And I think we're gonna be really shocked how fast this gets absorbed and how fast prices will go up. I know that in the rentals that we're doing on the lower end, because we do anything from 3,000 to 50,000, our lower price rentals that are, one bedrooms under 3,000, two bedrooms under 4,500, and three bedrooms under 5,000, we're actually renting them, believe it or not, virtually for more than we did last year. Now maybe it's 1, 2, or 3%, right? But it's still more, or 4 or 5 in some cases. So New York City is really, really a special place in a positive way. And for us, for Donna, for all the real estate agents in Manhattan, to be in our position, I think you're going to do exceptionally well in the rentals and sales market very soon. I mean, we see there is a demand for rentals right now. Right. And for sales, just to finish off, for the sales part, what's really going to also help it is low interest rates. I was speaking to a mortgage broker today that's getting one of our clients a 2% loan, 2% interest, and it's fixed.
Wow.
So I think a combination of that and the big companies that are coming here and will continue to come to New York City, because I feel that New York City is going to become the Silicon Valley. It's going to really help us. So I'm optimistic for that.
Donna, you're looking all the time. What did they tell you? Does it look more like a V-shaped recovery to you? When do you think when do you see things starting to pick up?
I think you're going to have, first of all, I don't think this is any V-shaped thing. So I think, to Khashy's point, I do think the lower end will be more resilient, because those are people who have to work in New York. They live in New York, and they will tap into the low interest rates, and so rentals are going to go, and the lower end. In 2008, the low end was the first thing to recover, and the high end was the last thing to recover. So, of course, New York is a collection of submarkets, and you really have to look at each submarket. They don't all track together, and different parts of town are different price categories are different. I mean, to Khashy's point, he is correct. I do think that I feel that New York will be back. It always bounces back. In my 40-year career, when everybody's counted it out and said it always comes back, and it comes back stronger. The question is when. If I could tag that, as I said, I'd be on my yacht. Yeah. But I right now, the buyer right now, let's get real. If they are buying an apartment, they expect a deal, or what I call a COVID-19 discount, right? That's just for the risk of going in, for the stock market being crazy, for maybe they have their job, maybe they don't have their job. It's all risk. And for taking that, they expect a deal. If you're a seller in this market, you have to expect that. And if you don't want to hear all the kinds of offers, then step out of the market, okay? But deals are getting done, not a lot, but they are getting done. And where I'm seeing these deals get done is people who saw the properties prior to March 22nd, by and large, and they are getting reintroduced to them at a lower price.
Right. So question, for a lot of the rental deals or some of the deals that are being done virtually, do you worry ever that clients who see how easy it is to do it virtually will think that, maybe I can do this on my own. Maybe I don't need an agent to rent this apartment. Khashy, what do you think? Yes.
I mean, look, ever since I got into this business, I was always worrying about clients going directly, right? But the value that a real estate agent brings is not to find you one apartment, it's to find you the apartment that you're looking for, and also to teach you all about the area and the data behind it, if that apartment is actually priced correctly or not, right? So, look, like I told you, I've worried about this since I started in the business, but I think that salesmanship is needed, and people need that hand-holding, whether they're renting an apartment or buying an apartment, and we become their real estate advisor.
Right.
On exclusives, they have to go through us. On open listings, yes, they can go directly to the building, but also it's going to take them a lot more time and they might not get the true facts of the area from that one person dealing within the leasing office, because their intention is only to rent that one apartment in the building. As a real estate agent, their intent is to find you the apartment that you want, to take you around, to hold your hand, to give you the data. You can get a better deal here. So I'm not concerned with it going away. And I think the more value that the real estate agent could add, doing the tours, taking the tours, and helping, we'll be here.
Right. Do either of you feel the pressure to remain independent or to stay, or I guess accelerated or added pressure to stay independent in a time like this when, you know, there's so much economic uncertainty and maybe, you know, there's less money to invest in something that you might want to invest in technology-wise? I know in past cycles, it's kind of a time when there's lots of M&A, particularly among small to mid-sized firms.
We've actually, during this epidemic, have hired agents that we train virtually. We've also hired 3 executive employees as well. It was our plan before, and we're still going with our business plan. And I'm actually very bullish on brokerage. And I think if it's done right, and you could make this business a lot more efficient for the agents. I think the virtual tour is great. Before somebody wants to go out, whether they're buying or renting, if the agent has a virtual tour of the property and they're interested in 10 properties, you narrow it down to 5. They save time. Now you're really creating value, right? The person that is buying it, right, or renting now saved a lot of time because you're able to go through those 10 tours. And, you know, time is a commodity that you can't buy. So I think that from what happened, and again, we're learning from this, how to be more efficient. And it's going to make the lives of real estate agents much better. It's going to give them more time, right? And they're going to be able to help their clients faster and save their clients time.
Got it. What about you, Donna?
In terms of what, Phoebe?
Just in terms of, you know, whether there would be another shakeup in the brokerage landscape.
I think the problem, you know, if you're a small owner and you've been doing it a long time, you've seen a lot and you try to operate through it. But I think it's very hard. It's attractive, the big companies, but they are under the weight, a huge amount of weight of, they're bloated with too much office space. They have a lot of staff that probably weren't necessary. They can shrink themselves by quite a bit. They don't need investing in bricks and mortar in a real estate office in this world is just not where it's at. So I think it's in certain ways we're nimble and we can move around. For them, it's going to be painful because and it destabilizes their agents too, because their agents see that they come into the office or they hear or they read it in the Real Deal that, you know, 100 people were let go here and 15% were cut here, and they become nervous. So I'm not, you know, I'm just a small fish out here swimming around, and I've done it for 40 years, and I know how to get through these environments. I've done it, but listen, these are hard choices. I think look, the value of being with a small company is that you can get that owner on the phone all the time, 24/7, or that you can get that late night email, and that you have the knowledge, you know, the complete knowledge of how to do these deals, what the buildings are, who the other brokers are. That's just something you can't get at a big company. You know, they'll have a manager on the east side and a manager on the west side, and it's the new development person and a this and a that, and it's just very decentralized. And so I don't know. I think we can get through this.
Okay, great. Well, thank you both so much for your answers. So much information, thoughtful answers. I would be remiss if I did not thank our sponsor again, LabFinder. Thank you. But Khashy, Donna, thank you for spending the afternoon with us. Happy Friday after everyone.
Hi.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, everybody.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Be safe.